So, hi Daniel, how are you? I'm going to begin by asking you how to pronounce your surname.
Caltagirone. Caltagirone.
Caltagirone.
Yes.
What's the ethnicity?
My mother and father are Italian. So
Nice.
I was born in London, and yeah. So but I yeah. So I'm British by all accounts, but obviously Italian blood. But having said that, in India, you're the first person who's asked me about my surname because everyone now calls me Daniel. So I'm the only Daniel in India apparently, Daniel, because everyone has to have that one name, Daniel. So yes, you're the first person.
But it's a very intriguing surname. So I was wondering what the ethnicity was.
Yeah, it's a very ancient name actually, and it's interesting because it comes from probably over 1,000, well, a couple of thousand years ago, really, when where my parents come from is a place called Sicily, where it was a
Of course,
crossroads
the
for
mafia.
oh yeah, it is. But it was apart from that, it was the crossroads for many ancient cultures like the Persians, the
Yeah.
Normans, the Greeks, the Romans. I mean, the list is endless.
Yeah.
And that family name, I think Caltagirone, comes from many moons ago from maybe the Persians who settled there.
Right.
So, and it's funny because a lot of people ask me if I'm people ask
If
me if
you
I'm from Rajasthan. I'm like, no, I'm not, because and I'm like, why? And they're like, "It's your skin and you've got dark look, but you've got white, like lighter skin." I'm like, Rajasthan. So there must be some weird connection that goes back. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, there's so much of mixed blood out there. And increasingly, there's so many multi-hyphenated people out there, which is great, I think. I
Yeah,
remember 20 years ago, a Time magazine cover that talked about how beauty would no longer have one ethnicity. It would be multi-hyphenated. So
yeah,
there you go. So
yeah.
I'll
That's
of
true.
course stick to calling you Daniel and not Castellaroli, which is a mouthful. But it's interesting. So you get to play a lot of period parts, I guess. It has some harking back to your very ancient surname, perhaps.
I, you know what? I've done a mix. I mean, that's a good point. It's like, yes, I've done a lot of. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of different things, but I have done these big shows on television
Yeah,
where I've been in period Renaissance. I've done. I was in a big show
right.
called Medici, Richard
Of
Madden.
course. Huge.
Um, I was in. I
We
was in
all
the.
know it because of Richard Madden, whom we
Of course,
love because of,
I
you
know. I
know,
know you guys.
Game of
Yeah,
Thrones.
yeah. He's fantastic. Very sweet guy. Um, and then of course I was in that was Medici, and then I was in the
Maybe.
Tudors, which I believe
Yeah.
was very big in India, the Tudors, at way back when.
Right.
So and then I've done westerns. I've done all kinds of stuff. Oh, of course, I played a Roman. I was in a show, one of the lead actors in a show called Britannia. So yeah, I have done a varied mix of stuff, but it's always fun to do period pieces because you kind of feel
Yeah.
like you're time traveling a little bit. You know, it kind
Yeah.
of feels so. Yeah.
I love that too. And I don't know how it must be for actors, but wearing those costumes is so, I mean, the costumes look so lovely, but I'm not sure it's very comfortable for the actors.
Oh no, and that's the thing. Everyone will always say, "Oh, those costumes look so sexy," and you guys look, and I'm like, no, especially when you need to go to you know, to the restroom.
Yes.
You've got a, I've got like a Roman armored plate, and and I'm trying to take it off, and the costume guys are trying to, and it's very hot or it's very cold, and you've got to pretend that everything. The whole filmmaking process, I think, is hilarious because the public really don't understand
Yes,
what on
exactly.
earth we have to do to look good or bad or whatever it is. There's a process that's very long and arduous, put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about being be acting with in a Par Ranjit film because he's one of our most political
Mm.
filmmakers, and his idea of caste and his idea of identity. is very, very complex and very deeply thought. So I
Yes.
was just wondering, and also the other point I wanted to make is that so far our British villains have been very sort of cardboard-like. So I was wondering how you played it. I don't know if you got a chance to see some of the English villains we've had. They're usually, for instance, in RRR, they're usually very one-dimensional. They're just villainous, and there's nothing more to them.
Yeah.
But I wonder how you played your character.
Well, you raise a multitude of interesting points there.
I know, lots of questions.
That really, I'll try and answer all of them. So, firstly, I when Ranjit and I first spoke, that was my first concern because I didn't know who Ranjit it was for obvious reasons. And we got to know each other. We had a long conversation. I hadn't read the script, but Ranjit was selling it to me in this very passionate way, and I thought this guy's really interesting. But he said my question to him was, look, I've seen Indian cinema, when the bits I've seen, and the English actors are always not very good. That they hire them from some local agent, like just people who happen to speak English who live in India, who will do that part, that cliche part. I said, look, I'm not being funny, but I know you've approached my agent. I don't know which sort of amount of which elements of my work you've seen, but just let you know I don't want to do any cliche English British roles. And he went, no, you don't understand. The reason I'm coming over to the West and the reason I want to hire you is because I want something different. And that intrigued me straight away. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, I want you to provide levels. It's not just going to be this one level. You're a British colonialist. You're human. You're fundamentally a flawed character, but a human being, and you're actually a good person when at heart. So I was intrigued by that, and I thought, I don't think this has been done in Indian cinema off the top of my head. And I remember thinking, oh, this could be
Very
interesting.
rarely. Very
Very
rarely, Daniel.
very rarely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other element is that he said you're going to be a parallel lead, and that then I thought, oh, hang on, now that certainly I haven't maybe seen, or that's rare. And in terms of what you were talking about, social commentary, then I went away and then started to sort of look at his films, and I was very, very acutely aware straight away that he was a very powerful social commentator, and a very good filmmaker. So I was sold in the sense of like I liked his work. Look, for me, as long as it's within the realms of good taste, someone's political views, etc., don't bother me. I need to know: are you a good artist? Are you a decent person? Do your morals hold value? Apart from that, someone's political views. I think we are living in an age now where we've become intolerant of each other and our views. And my view is, as artists, where has that sense of belonging sort of gone to, where we kind of respect each other's views? So, I thought he was a very powerful social commentator. That's not the primary reason I wanted to work with him. It was because of his work as a director. When I watched this stuff, I was reminded, and I've said this before, I was reminded of Spike Lee, who's out, in America's sort of, in the West is our sort of powerful social commentator. And in fact, when I spoke to Ranjit, he said, I really love Spike Lee. So I could see it straight away in his movies. So anyway, sorry, that's a long answer to that question, but I hope it kind of answers it.
It's very interesting you mentioned this, Daniel. Just yesterday, we were having a discussion on blaxploitation movies, and how Spike Lee sort of took back that sort of sense of appropriation, and he
Yeah,
made black film his
yeah,
own. So
yeah,
in a way, Ranjit is doing that precisely to
yeah,
the Dalit movie,
yeah,
the movies about caste. He's
yeah,
doing that exact same thing. He's taking back the uh, uh, the idea that has been appropriated by others. So I think
Yes,
that's why
yes,
his work is so significant. But tell me,
yes.
what was it like to actually be shooting? It's one thing to commit to, shooting, I don't know how many days in India, but what was it exactly like? And have you been here before? And was it as
Yeah,
chaotic and maddening as shoots everywhere, or more so?
yes. I mean, look, I have been to India before, and interestingly enough, Rajasthan. Um,
Okay.
but but this is the first time I've shot an Indian movie. When I was shooting Rajasthan, it was an Indian director, but he was Americanized. His name's Tarsem Singh. He's a big director in
Right, of
Hollywood.
course, of course. Which movie of his were you in? Sorry,
I
sorry for
was
my
in
ignorance.
I was in The Fall, which is now become a big cult classic, and is studied by filmmakers around the world because there was absolutely no CGI. But when you look at the
Right,
film, you think this must be CGI, but there's nothing. A
right.
hugely talented director, hugely talented,
Very.
but it was an American film, so we shot in Rajasthan. I was spent 6 months there, so I kind of got to know obviously a different part of the country, but I kind of got to know India and get that sensibility. And so and then of course I've worked with other Indian filmmakers like Shekhar Kapoor, but again that was an American Hollywood movie in Morocco, so that's different. But this is my first Indian film, and the first thing I noticed when I got on set, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is insane. It was just hundreds of people running around. It was noisy, it was frenetic. And at first, it was really, I sort of felt very discombobulated. I kind of was trying to, when your brain is trying to still an image, sometimes maybe it's a very complicated pattern and your brain is trying to work out what that pattern is. That's what it was like. But as soon as I clicked in place, I realized it wasn't chaos. It was a kind of, there was a pattern and an element of control. So it was controlled chaos in a sense that everyone knew what they were doing, and everyone was it was just a different methodology. And I have to confess, I actually ended up loving it more than back in the West, because back in the West, everything's so controlled, you know, all the timings and everything else. I mean, for example, right, I was told by Pyro and Jit, oh, by the way, Daniel, we'll be filming for 3 months. I was like, 3 months? Okay, cool. I mean, even in this day and age, that's quite a long time in filmmaking, not like the old days. And that turned into 1 year. So that just goes to show, if that happened in the West, I mean, it would be this. I mean, not it happens sometimes, but very, very rarely.
It usually becomes a big issue, cost
Yes.
overrun,
Yeah, yeah,
movies not
yeah,
working or
yeah.
whatever.
Exactly. It would be chaos. It would be crazy. So I ended up staying in India for I mean, we filmed in Chennai, we filmed in KGF, and um, as well as other locations briefly. But I was here for a year, um, and it was incredible. I mean, look, with India, there's not when you ask people in the West, or not just the West, around the world, you say, what do you think of India? People either love it or they don't understand it.
Yeah.
There's no in between. It's like, I didn't get it. I got there and it was this and that. Unless you buy into India, unless you really let go, you can't. You have to embrace it. And once you embrace it, it is the most incredible, extraordinary country in the world. And I have. It's like almost like my second home now. I mean, I it was like I made family here, because it was, all the people looking after me. And then if I walk down the street now, people shout at me, "Hey, Mr. Daniel!" And it's amazing. It's wherever I go, people know who I am in the state of Chennai. It's weird. It's so weird, but it's because I've been here so long, and the media and the press and the build up, everyone's got to know me even before the films come out, which is weird, very, very strange. I've never experienced that before. So it's been an amazing time. Amazing time.
Have you got offers to be in other Tamilian movies? I'm sure.
Say again?
Have you got offers to be in other movies in India
Uh,
already?
No, no, no. I think that was. I'm not thinking about doing another film in India. Not that I don't want to. I would love to. Um, but I think I think look, I don't know, but is India ready at the moment to start thinking about a Western actor coming in and playing leads in their films? I don't know. Paranjit was ready, but are other directors ready yet? I don't know. I think it will maybe take a bit longer for them to get out of that mindset of the
Yeah,
British guy comes in and he plays the
the bad
colonialist,
guy.
the
Yeah.
bad guy. Don't get me wrong. This role that I'm playing, Clement, I mean, there's obviously very bad elements there, but what's interesting is that we're all bad. It's not me bad, them good. It's not like that. We're all corrupted in this. That's the interesting part. And then, of course, the different levels I bring to it. But um, yeah, it's just it's interesting. But I would love to. I would love to work in India again. I love this country, but I don't know if India's ready yet. I mean, you never know; they might be. But if they are, and they start becoming more international in their
Yeah.
hiring of actors, then India will become, I think, the most powerful film industry in the world. There's no doubt.
How I was wondering how was it like acting with a group of people whose training and sort of background was so different from yours? Was there a difference in tonality? Was there a difference? Did you have to act up or act down? I mean, was there any such thing that you had to do, or was it
Yeah,
just the way that intended to
yeah.
do
Again, you
the?
raise, yeah, and again, you raise interesting points. So the first 2 or 3 weeks on Thangalaan for me was very difficult
Yeah,
because I'm a naturalistic style of acting in the West.
yeah,
It's just different approach. It's not one's better than the other. But Ranjit was like bigger, 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 and
louder, more.
louder, more. And I was like, Ranjit, oh, I can't. This is overacting. This is insane. But he said to me, and this was an interesting point. Yes, you're right. But in this world, if you do your naturalistic acting, you're just going to fade into the background, right?
Absolutely.
You are a very powerful character and you control the space. So it's a fantastical world. It's not a real necessarily a realistic world. There's elements of fantasy. So you've got to punch up. And then one day he took me behind the camera to the monitor and said, because I was getting more and more frustrated. And one day I just got really angry and I just like not exploded personally, but on as the
Yeah,
character. And he said, "Come and have a look at the monitor." And I looked at the monitor and I was like, "Oh, I get it," because suddenly I was fitting into the world and alongside my fellow actors. And by the way, it's not the fact that their style is like, oh, they have to overact. It's not that. They knew what was required of this world.
yeah.
And I was, they also guided me as well about style and everything else because I was just lucky because they were amazing actors, amazing. So yeah, I was able, but it wasn't natural for me, and it was very difficult to adapt.
Yeah, I can understand. It often happens because it's really like two different cultures, coming
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
How was Vikram and how was Parvati? And you said magnificent actors. Did you make good
Well,
friendships?
I mean, this is a testament to Paranjit because he thought very carefully about the roles, and when I say very carefully about the roles, I mean like he he it was like a jigsaw puzzle for him. He um he wanted to make sure that every role was filled by the right actor, and he spent a lot of time thinking about who was going to go in each role. That ended up being very fortunate for me because look, every project you work on, mostly, not always, but mostly, there's always a pain in the backside actor who's not very nice, egomaniac, not very talented. Because the more egomaniac, the less talent. That's what I've learned in my life. So the spoiled big actors, they usually got less talent, and that's their ego or their fear. They've got fear. But I arrive on this set, and I'm met by Vikram. I'm met by the first two was Vikram, Parvati, and I were in rehearsals together, and they were so nice and so quiet and generous and lovely that we clicked straight away. But the important relationship was really between Vikram and I, because I almost play that antithesis. We're sort of the same, different sides of the same coin. Right. And I understood implicitly that he had my back and I had his back. And we instantly had this weird relationship, which was almost symbiotic. I don't know what you want to call it, but it was
brothers in a way.
Yeah, we just understood each other, and that brought us very close together. We ended up becoming very good friends, as I did with Parvati. And then Malavika joined us shortly after. And again, wonderful actress, really works hard. And we became, the four of us, alongside Pasupadi, who was a legend of an actor. We became very close. And I just got lucky with these guys. They're funny, they're generous. We laughed every day, and we had to, because we were working 7 days a week. We were in if you ask all my colleagues, they'll tell you it was one of the hardest films they've ever done. And I'm a really experienced actor, and so is Pasu, and so is Vikram, so is Parvi, etc. And we were like, this is hard. I mean, this was unreal, relentless. So it was important that you had these egoless actors who just could laugh at the worst situation. We would be together at 4 o'clock in the morning. It would be cold. It would be just, we hadn't had slept. We'd maybe slept 5 hours in 2 days. And at that point, you know, if your colleagues are fantastic, because you're just there, you're there for each other. So yeah, I was lucky. I was very lucky.
And what are the sets like, Daniel? Are they very different from what you have in the West? Do all the stars go back to their vanity vans as soon as the scene is over, or do they hang around on the set? What's it like here? And is it different from your culture from the West?
To be honest, I think that's where it's kind of similar. That there is no. It's not dissimilar in the sense of you've got big actors in the West. I've worked with a lot of them. Some are very gracious and lovely. Like I said, the ones that are talented are like really, and you'll be, they'll come and hang in your trailer, or you hang in their trailer, and you talk about life and everything else. The same in India. So I did the same with Vikram. I would be in his trailer, we'd just have lunch together, or with Parvati, or with Malavika being mine, or Parvati and mine. We'd just switch around. We'd always be together. That shows you that should be a sort of indication of their mentality and their talent. But I will equally have, and I can't speak for India, but in the West you have these egomaniacs who just, I'm just, I'm going to be.
You can't look me in the eye.
You can't look me in the eye. But I've witnessed some of the craziest stuff where there's been more than one big star, and they've been arguing for about 5 days with the agents, with the producers, about my trailer needs to be bigger than her trailer or his trailer. And 5 days of madness like this. My trailer, and look, I've measured it. My assistant measured it, and mine's 1 meter left. And you kind of like, you just want to get like a baseball bat and just take it to their heads and say, will you shut up? Wake up.
And if you talk to the actors, they'll say, we don't know. It's the agent, you know.
It's the agent. It's always the agent. It's always the agent. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. You don't want to be, if someone gives you a horrible trailer and it's dirty or filthy, of course, that's one thing. But when it gets to the point where you're trying to outdo the other actor, it's like, what? that's insane. It doesn't mean it. It's all about status. I'm not interested in general of working with those kind of actors. I try to avoid it. Sometimes you can't avoid it, but I've seen pretty much everything that you could see in this
What's
film
the other
industry.
stuff that you've seen, like specific food ordered from specific places, stuff like that? Because
What for them?
it's come to,
Oh,
yeah.
I've worked with an actor who should remain nameless, very big Hollywood star, who said to me, rather kindly, and I got on well with him. He was sweet. He was very sweet. But he said to me, "Hey, listen, do you what should we have for dinner tonight?" And I said, "Well, we were in the middle of nowhere. I'm not going to tell you where because someone might find work out which film it was." And they were like, "Oh look, I'm going to find some." No, sorry. He was like, "Do you want some sushi?" And I went, "Sushi?" I said, "We're in the middle of like, what the hell are we going to get sushi?" He was like, "Oh, I'm flying it in. Just give me your order. They'll make it on the plane. They'll put the fish in the fridge, and they'll make, and then it'll take them like from the airport, take them an hour." And I was like, "This is, it gets to pretty crazy levels. Every time you think you've reached that level, someone will do something even crazier, and so you kind of yeah, I'm not surprised anymore by anything, and I'm sure there's crazier stuff than that. I mean, I think I've heard some mad things like people flying in special food for their pets.
Yes,
Anyway, yeah.
we've heard
So
that too.
say again.
I said we've heard that too. I mean, a lot of
Oh,
that.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure you've got some serious egos in your industry. I'm pretty sure, as also like we have.
So great. So, were you then quite happy with the way the role panned out, and was it not as caricaturish you had as you had not wanted? So, were you quite happy at the end of the shoot?
Well, bear in mind, I haven't seen the film, so it's always the key is always in the edit room,
Yeah.
right? But the way I portrayed it, I definitely did different levels of emotion, and you know, if I did my job properly, then you'll see me portray different aspects of kindness, generosity, hate, love, fear, anger. All of that you should see elements of that all in Clement. Um, but like I said, it's a journey of it's how the human spirit is corrupted by a desire for something which is so powerful that it corrupts you inside out. So you'll see that with me, you'll see that with Vikram, you'll see that with some of the other characters. But Vikram and I, it's that sort of, it's that dark. I kind of liken it to a mythical dance. You know, when two characters dance around each other, and
Right.
that's the character Vikram and I. We are at loggerheads, but we are the same. But we're not. But we are. But it's that thing. But it's like that push and pull away from each other. So that you should see that. I'm fingers crossed you'll see that in the film.
Are you coming down for the premiere?
I'm here. I'm here. I've
Oh,
been
you're
here.
here.
I'm sitting in my. Well, where am I? I'm in Chennai today. Yes.
Oh,
But I've
all
been
right.
traveling around different parts of the country. So yeah, I arrived a week ago to start promotion. So I've done countless media interviews now. But so the journey continues. And we fly off somewhere tomorrow. I can't remember where. It's almost like being in a rock band. You know, when they kind of go from some location, then they start to
Yeah.
forget where they are. I started to forget where I was at one point. But yeah, no, I'm here. I'm closer to you than you think.
Did you have to do a lot of research, a lot of reading before actually getting down to doing the role? Did you watch a lot of movies?
Um,
What kind of work you did? Apart from, of course, I'm sure Ranjit gave you a good script, but
yeah, no, with Ranjit, yeah. So in terms of research, I watched Madras, I watched Saparta, just very quickly get a feel for him as a filmmaker. And I loved his work immediately. I also looked at Vikram stuff. I was sent this kind of reel of his work, and I thought this guy's really interesting. It's rather transformative style of actor where he
Yeah.
he pushes to the limit to transform. That aside, of course I looked into the colonialist past, and I kind of knew aspects of it already because I come from the UK. But my character is loosely based on a real ex-army officer who went to KGF to discover gold. But I'm not going to talk about who he is because I think there's a fear that will detract from the film. But I looked into him, and then I looked at that period, and then I had to make a decision myself about what I wanted to portray. And I decided not to make him very high status. What I mean by very high status is I could have taken him to a level of extreme received pronunciation, right? But I had, looking at this real life character who was a bit of an outsider, I thought that's an interesting hook. I want to make him like he's part of this high society, but he's had to force himself into there by one means or another. And he's a bit rough around the edges. And the reason I did that was because when I started to look at the script, not script, but just speaking to Ranjit about the story, and that mirror image again of Vikram Thangalaan, I thought I want to make him different to what you see normally in Indian cinema. So when you see him arrive, you see this person who is very intense, of course, very still and calm, but he is very much not your cliche army high-ranking officer. I wanted to make him different, but I also changed his physicality. I said to Ranjit, I'm going to make him very heavy. And he said, well, what are you thinking? And we talked about Clement is very powerful. So when he walks into the space, he takes controls for, especially in that period, he would be viewed as a kind of someone from at the highest level of a caste system, for example, right?
Right.
So I wanted to make him heavy. So I ate a lot of Indian food. And before I arrived at Indian sweets, before I arrived in England, I started eating a lot and bulking up weight and doing a different kind of gym routine where it was more about bulk and heaviness. And so I put on 1.5 stone of weight. I was big. You should see, but it was all like here, and it was just like, so he's like an animal. He's like a bull. Whereas a lot of the time, I think, again, when you see these army officers portrayed in Indian cinema, they're very kind of svelte.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to make him more animalistic. So I broke that pattern again. I did everything I could to make him different. So I hope it works. I will see. I mean, after all this, people might go, what on earth is that? How rubbish Daniel is. I mean, that's awful. So I don't know. We'll see.
Great. Thank you so much, Daniel.
It's a
It's
pleasure.
been such a pleasure speaking to you. And I will, of course, watch the film, and I'm sure it'll be terrific. Ranjit doesn't usually get things wrong, so I'm sure it'll be great. And it'll be nice to see a different kind of Englishman on screen. You
I
guys have
hope
done
so.
a lot of bad things to us, but it's okay. We've forgiven you.
I hope so. And here's the interesting part is that, I've had zero judgment call against me or my character from the Indian public. Everyone's so welcoming and so there's no none of these comments about another imperialist character or none of that. And it's been really nice. And I'm hoping that it conveys well. And you're right, Ranjit so far has hit that nail on the head, and he's been very consistent. So I've given him all my trust. So we'll see what happens. And but it's been lovely speaking to you too.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. All
No,
the best.
pleasure. All the best. Take care. Bye.